And now I'm very pleased to turn to our second keynote conversation that brings two visionary leaders into dialogue, leaders who remind us that institutions can either entrench inequity or be remade into engines of liberation. Kamilah Forbes, executive producer of the Apollo Theater, has transformed the legendary stage into a platform where history meets contemporary Black expression at its boldest. She has taken one of the most storied addresses in Harlem and ensured it remains not a museum of the past, but a crucible for the future, a living, breathing home for artistry that refuses to apologize for itself. Marc Bamuthi Joseph is a poet, librettist, and strategist of cultural life. His work crosses forms and disciplines from opera houses to community centers. A TED Global Fellow and a member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, he has written landmark works like We Shall Not Be Moved, The Just and the Blind, and most recently Watch Night at the Perlman Center. At the Kennedy Center, he pioneered initiatives that showed how a national institution can reimagine its civic role, and no one can erase that achievement. Both of their biographies are in your program, but just let me simply say, Kamilah and Marc embody the belief that art belongs at the center of public life. Their conversation will illuminate not only the challenges we face, but the future that we can claim together. Please join me in welcoming Kamilah Forbes and Marc Bamuthi Joseph.
Y'all done fucked up now.
Gave us the microphone and a stage. Uh-oh. How are y'all doing today? Somebody said this felt like a family reunion.
Nicole,
it does,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, it does.
With your cousins and aunties and uncles.
People got in trouble with.
I know, like you.
Like you.
So Marc and I have, just for context, as well as I love what was, amplified earlier in the room, conspirators, this notion of conspirators and how important that is to the ecosystem. We've known each other over 25, close to
Yes.
years. Yeah. And also, and have worked and collaborated in many different fields and forms, from poetry, hip hop theater, to television, to all stages around the world.
That's because Kamilah always got the dope job. That is what she is saying is, I, Kamilah Forbes, am the plug. And, I do hood things.
And you the juice. You the juice, Marc Bamuthi Joseph. But what I just want to also acknowledge and thank MBT and the Armory for this space. Truly. Sade and Jonathan and the rest of the team at MBT, this is transformational, the work you have been doing and continue to do and continue to amplify and uplift, and particularly the work of codifying this moment. They asked us, because we had a pre-Zoom, right, to see, I tried to come with questions because I knew Marc was going to come with questions. So I was like, let me just ask first before you ask me anything. But they asked us where our first brilliant keynote by the legendary Dr. Mary Schmidt-Campbell really talked about the building of permanence of institutions, taking us from a moment from her history and past to the present moment. And what we're here been charged with is to talk about the now. But more importantly, more specifically, wanting to take us from the last catalyst moment. There was images here from the catalyst convening that happened in 2023. So we want to be able to ground us from 2023 to 2025, because a lot has happened since last we convened. So the Catalyst report revealed both the brilliance in the state of Black theater today, but also challenges. the extraordinary artistry thriving while our institutions are wrestling with inequities and resources and visibility and care. You know, and it's brilliant to be able to talk here with Marc Bamuthi Joseph as one of these rare voices, a poet, an architect of cultural strategy, a national steward of imagination. And we're here to gather to ask, where are we and where must we go? But in 2023, in the Catalyst gathering, you know, what happened was during that time is MBT was co-producing 2 works on Broadway's, Pearly Victorious, Fat Ham. We had just seen, yes, please give it up, because that ain't no small feat. We'd also just seen in 2023 a populated season of Black work on the Great White Way, from Clyde's Passover, Ain't No More Trouble in Mind, Lackawanna Blues, Thoughts of a Colored Man. On the heels of 2020, we saw major initiatives supporting dollars, funding organizations of color, going to organizations of color all across the country, leadership organizations like Ford Foundation starting the American Cultural Treasures and then what. So, and we also saw in 2023, you premiered a new work at the Permanence Center on the site of 9/11. You premiered the opening of the Permanence Center with your work, Watch Night, which was a piece that explored a site of American radicalized violence and how also art is a sacred resistance and healing. That all happened in 2023. So the impulse of work was generative. It was a very much a wellspring. And here we are in 2025. 2025, I want to talk about your work, and I think we're talking about ourselves as artists as well as administrators and leaders, but you premiered Carnival of the Animals that explored the January 6th insurrection at the Lincoln Center. 2025, we also know the Kennedy Center became a battleground for democracy, a battleground for art, a battleground for ideas. And your program, Social Impact, that you had been building since 2019, that you were the artistic director of and founder of, was completely done away with and decimated. So Marc, what I want to ask you today is that today your legacy is synonymous not only with the art you create and have created, and additionally your creation and your leadership in the creation of culture for and inside of institutions. And in the midst of all these things that you are, you also became a real-time example of how art is powerful enough to be considered a threat. That systems can shift from under us, knowing what you know now. Is there a way to build institutions that are independent from the ripple effects of our political system and current climate?
Is there a way to build our institutions that
are independent from the ripple effects of our political system and current climate?
No. And that is okay. In the way that we are a people of energetic reciprocity, we have always responded to all the calls. And even when those calls are nefarious, as a matter of fact, particularly when the call is nefarious, we respond with light. My personal cosmology is that we are halfway houses. Our bodies are halfway houses for rays of light. And that when we die, our energy returns to the universe that birthed us. Mm-hmm. So there is a way, I think, that we can build institutions made of light, and this is part of what we're experiencing right now in this moment. But brick and mortar is not light. I was struck by the example of visual artists auctioning their work off to generate $20 million of capital for a brick and mortar institution. What I was struck by was that performing artists could not do the same thing.
Yeah, that's right.
That we in the theater or we in the dance fields, we who are practitioners of time-based art cannot achieve the same kind of equity for our time that those artists who codified their work in material, photography, sculpture, visual art, the value is not the same thing. And I wrote in my journal the value of time-based art. And then I segmented it off and said the value of time. The value of time. What is our time worth? So, can we build institutions outside of this sinister tempest that we are currently experiencing? Yeah, but they have to be institutions made of light. Can we build institutions inside of the tempest? Yes. But we have to acknowledge that some of the brick and mortar is going to be bloody. What is the midpoint in between? A kind of currency where we begin to value time. There's so many choreographers that are here in the room. And as a person who is, thank you. Like what's the value of my body as it begins to return to the universe? And therefore, what is the value of my art? So we are going to have to convince the philanthropist class, the donor class, the corporate class that there is value in our time. That there is a value in the body, even as it transitions into something that you cannot touch or cannot see. And that's a hard sell. That's right. But I think we can do it.
I do too.
Yeah.
Okay. I can't go to my next one. Damn it, he's turning to me. But so just to respond to that really quickly, I mean, I want to pick up on, and Sade, what you were talking about, this notion of cultural currency, because that's what I think the answer is, right? And I love, Sade was sharing with me about how MBT and has really begun to really sharpen the tools and the language around cultural currency, the articulation around that and how important that is. Right now in our institutions, in our field, currency is only tied to dollar amount. Right? Only, strictly. So when it comes to the big capital campaign, when it comes to the raising of money in annual campaigns, that's the only thing that's speaking. And the body, the art, the cultural currency that our institutions are overwhelming, because we always punch above our weight because of that cultural currency, is pushed to the side, is minimized, is left in the corner. And that's a challenge. How do we sharpen? We have to sharpen that tool and our language, each one of our institutions, to get sharper in that.
Kamilah, who in your life gets that? Besides everybody in this room.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? And truly, it's funny. Walking into this room was such like a breather of fresh air. In a sense of that, to that point, right? Artists, we get it. It's an unspoken herd. The currency, but also the other person I would say in my life is would be my grandmother. She was a praying woman, you know what I mean? And she was a woman who, she only spoke in parables. She always spoke in parables. Jamaican. I'm from a Jamaican heritage, so those who know. But there was, because of always speaking in parables and not sort of the straightforward 1 + 1 + 2, allowed so much more room for interpretation as artists do. And therefore allowed for so much more breath and space for this notion of value beyond what I can touch and feel to be articulated. And so, I always find myself reaching for her. She's since passed on, but I always find myself reaching for that essence when we think about value and what is important.
I mean, we have managed to do it. And, I applaud everyone in this room. I applaud the organizers in this room for creating a multi-generational gathering, one that adheres to multiple voices, folkloric voices, the voices of parable. There are strategists, there are playwrights. It's extraordinary, just kind of the range that is possible. The multi-generational conversation is also a reminder of our resilience. That not only are we here, more importantly, we got here. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't just happen, we got here. The poet Lucille Clifton, every day, something tried to kill me and failed.
But this time makes it hard, Marc.
Let me tell you, as an unemployment agent.
Yeah. This time makes it hard.
Yeah, this time makes it hard. This time makes it hard. I was telling you that I flew in from Amsterdam last night, and for the first time flying into the United States of America, and I don't know why it was the first time, but it was definitely the first time, I was like, I just hope I get through. And I feel like, particularly in the dramaturgical tradition of folks who have honored Baldwin or have honored ancestors who have endured in a very specific and very courageous way, we name these names and maybe romanticize the precipice of death that many of our elders and many of our ancestors approached. It is dangerous in a very real way to be an artist.
Very real.
And not just dangerous like I can't pay my rent, fragile, not just dangerous like I'm saying the things that might upset somebody, dangerous like your very being is criminalized. And there are these narratives of fear on the public radar and in the public imagination. And these are people that are like just brown. They ain't even said shit. They just brown.
Right.
And speak another language. Wait till they get to us.
Wow.
So I have a question for you about danger.
Okay.
How is an institution like the Apollo, or how does an institution like National Black Theater, how does an institution like Park Avenue Armory or New York Theater Workshop, the institutions that are represented in this room, what is your relationship to danger? How do we make home for danger?
That's a really good question. I would say is that there is a sense of bold fearlessness that must be required for all of our institutions in this moment. And bold fearlessness that may set us apart. And by us, I don't mean even the whole institution, sometimes individual voices inside of the institutions.
Right.
It may set you apart, but that is what is required in this moment.
Yeah.
And just to even, bring even more practicality to, is that there's a point in which, and we saw this on the TV and in culture, being Black, that we go through points of popularity. We have just come out of a very moment of big popularity, be Black. Oh, we Black. Everybody, everyone, and it's great. It's great. In the world, in the larger, but what happens in those moments when it's not?
Right. Yeah.
Who and how do you stand in that bold fearlessness when it's not? We've just come out of a moment, I've been in conversations with other colleagues about scrubbing their website and how they're describing their institutions, removing language, switching words to appear less othered. And that is, when I just thinking about it, I have a physical reaction to it. But I think that is that moment, and that only comes from fear. It comes from fear of retaliation. It comes from fear of loss of funding. It comes from fear of loss of donors. And we have also, yes, seen that happen. So where do we stand in that? Are there certain artists we just don't produce? Is that where we're going? Is there certain work that we just don't put on our stages that we would 5 years ago? Is that where we're going? We've got to check our own moral compass daily.
Yeah. It kind of comes, when you say that, it reminds me of the institution question. Because like many of us, I live in the future. And there's, I'm really into this idea of a post-fear economy. I'm really into the idea of the other side of fear. And I'm very clear that there is an architecture that has to be designed for the post-fear economy that's going to be authored by the people in this room.
Got it.
So if we ask about like, where's Black theater now, we're actually not having, we're only partially having, I think, a creative conversation. Mm-hmm. The creative conversation is almost self-evident. Mm-hmm. The where Black theater is now is on some Mos Def shit. It's like, it's not some giant hiding in the hills somewhere. It's literally in this room. Mm-hmm. But the infrastructure of Black theater as a cultural force, I think, has to strategically position itself right now in 2025, has to position itself essentially in 2035. Has to essentially position itself as the bridge to get us to the other side of fear. Mm-hmm. And I think that there might be a way to frame the fundraising conversation, mm-hmm. to frame the philanthropic, creative, and institutional conversation that is very specific about what happens after the sinister moment that we're currently in, mm-hmm. because destruction is unsustainable. Mm-hmm. This isn't, and I won't actually say the name. I will say Voldemort. The Voldemort's administration and the ethos around it is built on killing things. This is a very, very, very small man with a very, very, very large job. And it is such a shame, truly, that so much of the filter of our lives is now passes through the trauma of an unloved small human being. Mm. That said, the practice of this person and those that would support him is to destroy everything that we build. Yeah. But we build.
That's right.
You the way that you can't bomb the world into peace, you can't destruction is unsustainable.
That's right.
So then what it is that we build and what it is that we seek to name, I think isn't just about the present moment, although we've been asked to talk about the present moment. The present moment requires us to position ourselves as architects of the future moment in like a really real, practical way.
Yeah. That's real. You know what I mean? It's interesting as you're talking, it has me think about like what we were talking about earlier, right? Is this notion of, okay, so how we build and think about the future moment, how can we go back and learn from our past, right? There's several historian journalists have been talking about this moment as a second nadir. Nadir. So I'll contextualize. The first nadir happened right after Reconstruction. So Reconstruction, we saw some of the largest moments of Black mobility in regards to right on the heels of emancipation, where our largest number of Black leadership in Senate on a political level, on a social level. The Gilded Age was happening, so huge amounts of wealth was amassing around the country, and we were involved in that. Yes. And then there was fear.
Right.
because here's now 15% of the population who can now vote and who can now earn. And then the nadir happened, and we saw that in public administration and through policy, through Jim Crow, through segregation laws. And that's what is termed as nadir, through the fact of Birth of a Nation being screened at the White House, sanctioned by the president. I remember when I read that like years ago, and I said, oh my God, that was horrible. That would never happen again. And here we are, the second nadir. In a moment of where literally policy is erasing our very existence from this country as hard it can. But what we also learned from history, which to your point about choreographing into the future, the response to that nadir was not big institution. The response to that nadir was salons. The response to that nadir was intellectuals cross-intersectionally building together. It became the Renaissance. It became the Harlem Renaissance. That's what was the response. So when I think about that, and think about, okay, well, that was collectives building actually not inside of big institutions, but smaller collectives that were decentralized, that could not become targets by government, that could not become battlegrounds by government and or administration. And so so I'm just curious about that. How do we build that kind of infrastructure towards our future?
There's the gig at the Kennedy Center was an interesting gig because the Kennedy Center is $250 million annual budget. When I was there, kind of hovering around there, pre-COVID, post-COVID, et cetera, hovering around there. And the budget that I inherited was about $1.5 million, which is a large Black organization. The budget that we had when I left was closer to $5 million, which is a really large Black institution. But $5 million in the course, within the context of $250 million is not a lot of money. It's less than 1%. So, we punched above our weight in what we did, and it helped to have the infrastructure of an institution. It helped me personally to be housed in Washington, D.C., because I did not think of myself as a patriot. But I started to think of the idea of patriotic inquiry as the way that I am of this soil. I keep turning to you, not only because I admire you, but also because you kept quoting Baldwin. So I thank you for bringing that ancestor into the room. This idea that America is ours is, I think, in part how we get there. There is no real need to completely cede the land that we made.
Say more.
Like, it feels, it is so seductive to think about what it is that we build on our own autonomous terms. Everything that we make is on our own autonomous terms because that's just kind of what our get down is. Like we tend to make in Black world, but Black world doesn't have to be, I think, apart from this idea of the American horizon. And so building organizations or building institutions is part of the infrastructural pathway to rebuilding America itself. And I don't really believe in the American dream, but I believe firmly in the American promise. Like, I know, heterosexism and patriarchy and military and white supremacy. And, okay.
That's part of it.
Okay. But then there's this idea of democracy, which is a really fly idea. The Constitution itself is a critical theory. right?
That's right. That's right.
It
That's right.
names
That's
it
right.
names a form of government that the world had never seen before.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So it is kind of a critical race theory in and of itself.
That's right. That's right.
So if if we if we think about the building of this country and the building of factories in Detroit, or the building of music centers or agricultural centers, if we think about our role there, then it would also seem that there's an argument to be made that the rebuilding of the American promise is going to require our institutions and our organizations. I think what we have to get better at is sharpening the argument that if we are to build an architecture on the other side of fear, if we are going to build a little bit closer to the American horizon, it will require organizations, particularly time-based, narrative-driven organizations, Black theater organizations, in order to tell the story, one, of how we got here, but also how we can keep going together. You know, but but then it kind of comes back to the value of time.
Yeah.
Like, what's the argument to make for the average philanthropist? Like, if you're pitching not that philanthropists are average, but if you're pitching the average philanthropist on the value of time as it relates to the rebuilding of the country, like, what are some of the things that we say? Who do we point to? Who are the artists in our midst that if we were successful in congregating certain artists, make the argument for the American promise? You know what I mean? Like, who are the playwrights? Who are the choreographers? Who are the artists that we build these arguments around?
Yeah. Shoot, the list will go on and on and on.
Yeah.
But, I think to your point is, I think, and I'm going to kind of veer a little bit from that question, because I don't think it's about even just naming singularity around artists. I think that where the argument can be made from a philanthropic standpoint is actually not only about, it's that exercise we just did. It's about how do we build infrastructure across institution, across artists, and not just within them, within singular institutions. We live in a again, because our work is so time-based, and I so appreciate all of the collaborations that we've had across many of the institutions that are sitting here. But the unfortunateness, I think, of our systems is that there is a sense of competition. We don't subscribe to that because we understand cultural currency. But how do we continue to make arguments around an infrastructure for the support of a full ecosystem that involves organizations of varying sizes, that involves collectives that may not also be fully 501c3s, that involves support around individual artists? It is that full 360, that's the argument. Because right now, many times, with a lot of sort of larger institutional donors, et cetera, it is singular. The argument is singular.
Yeah. There's my friend Rika says that opinions are abundant, but vision is scarce. You know, and that's it right there. Because I think that there's a way that there's a preformed opinion about what art is. And I'm sorry I keep trying to bring this back to economics, but when we're talking about institutions and institution building and infrastructure and organizations, I'm trying to figure out what the calculus is between a future-leaning understanding of our economy plus or magnified by the power of our cultural capacity, you know, and then kind of framed by an agreed upon rhetoric and strategy that actually gets us there.
Yeah.
And trying to do it with like 20 minutes left in the thing. So you know, maybe we were meant to have a creative conversation, but there's so many creatives in the room. Again, I don't want to. So I apologize for keep going this in this infrastructural direction, but
But I think the moment calls for it. I just have to say that.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
the moment calls for it, because I believe right now, whether we want to believe it or not, I mean, the question around infrastructure is being is tenuous
Yes.
at this moment.
Yeah.
So we have to be rethinking.
Yeah.
We have to be reimagining.
Yeah.
We just had a conversation. There's a conversation around philanthropy. The notion of just this administration, Voldemort's administration, is looking even the notion of philanthropy and upending that.
Right. Exactly.
What does that do to our world?
Exactly.
If now endowments shrink immediately,
Yeah.
and they're not earning in on itself?
Yes.
What does that do to mission-driven organizations?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so the kind of walls are coming in, and this kind of comes back to like the very narrow way that I think we are being perceived. I think that outside resources are tending to position the cultural argument in a way that they almost always have, which is culture is ornamental. Like, if I want to fight this administration, I would rather invest in a candidate or a get out the votes thing, or like all these kind of oppositional binary strategies that clearly don't work, because the actual battle is a culture war.
Yeah.
And we have currently lost we have currently lost justice because we first lost narrative justice. And the lack of understanding is really frustrating to me, that we have that rather than thinking about an investment in culture as a way to invest in civic stability and the stability and sustainability of democracy, we're seeing it as like, this $5 that I'm giving you is going to pay for a dance.
Right.
No, this $5 that you're paying me, this $5 that you're donating, or this $5 that you're lending, is not about the materiality of dance. It is about the ethereality of the people that are watching that dance.
Yeah.
And what happens when they leave the room.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In the same way
That's
that
right.
like the sun is
That's
a
right.
source of energy, or
That's right.
wind is a source of energy,
That's right.
inspiration is a source of energy. And we've lost democracy because we are an uninspired people. So who inspires us?
That's right.
You know what I mean? And I keep referencing these like ephemeral materials as the way that we actually build brick and mortar institutions. And that's the magic that your mom understood, that you understood, that the people in this room understand. Your season is called The Alchemy of Remembrance.
That's it.
The alchemy of return. Where's memory in the title? Memory is a radical act. Like the alchemy, it's alchemy. Like your alchemy of return. Like you're naming in a chemical way, in a compositional and constructive way, that magic is the material that builds things. So
yes.
Sorry.
To all of that. And also amplifying this notion of what you just spoke around narrative justice.
Yes.
Because I think that's the kind of language that we all need to, and that culture is not ornamental. I just want to amplify those two things. But let me ask you this then. You in this time of now in 2025, how do you sustain your artistic courage and build and pivot?
Okay. It's so weird because I just keep talking about forgiveness. And it is so weird, it just like breaks my heart.
Wow.
It does, man.
Wow.
Like, doesn't it hurt to be the bigger person? You know, as much as it hurts to hold on, doesn't it hurt to let go?
Yeah.
You know, to let go of the weight that someone else puts on you.
Yeah, that's real.
It is labor.
Yeah.
I used to think when I was a little younger, that I was into the dramaturgy of sweat. That I was into like sweat as currency,
That's right.
sweat as literary currency,
Yeah.
you know, and that's some ancestral shit. Like,
Yeah.
truly, it's like the labor. So I got so mad at Kamilah Forbes.
Yeah.
In Western Massachusetts, we were performing this. We were doing this residency, and we were developing this piece, and I purposefully created this work that Kamilah Forbes was directing. I purposefully designed this thing so that at the end of the third movement, I would have a break.
Oh, that's right. Oh, I forgot that.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. No, but you needed to come back. See, you needed to be there. Right, I forgot.
Kamilah Forbes left me in a pool of sweat, and then 5 seconds later was like, get up and dance some more. I was so mad at you. But I used to believe a lot in the currency of sweat and the dramaturgy of sweat, because I actually didn't believe the work if there wasn't blood or sweat. So I think about that a little less, because I'm trying to sweat a little less. You feel me? My kid is grown now. You know? But where I'm sweating more is on the inside.
Okay.
Because my work is focused on forgiveness.
Yeah.
It is focused on empathy. It is focused on the good news of spirit. And it is focused on love. And as a way to, and I don't mean these as like fun organizational categories. The work on love, for instance, is called Tomorrow Love. It's based on All About Love by Bell Hooks. But and we gonna do some things. And it's primarily centered around the idea of love and American manhood. That one of the reasons why we're in this place that we're in is because love is not integrated into our idea of masculinity, period, but particularly American masculinity. And the lack of grounding in love of American masculinity is one of the reasons why Rome is burning. So but it's also important to note that while the topics are forgiveness or empathy or spirituality or love, these are also strategic plays relative to philanthropic investment. Because I hope still in 2025 that it's hard to be like, no, Apollo Theater, you can't support this guy talking about love because that's anti-American. Or, I don't know. Or, no, Richmond Symphony, you're doing this work with, you know, about remembering empathy, but no, we can't support that because empathy is anti-American.
Interesting. I see what you're saying.
Right? So I'm sustaining myself through art that like goes deep into emotional labor, but also very intentionally using language around that art that I hope is inoculated from all the arrows that are coming from on high. It's an experiment.
I got you.
What are you doing?
Well, hold on. I got a follow up. I'll talk about what I'm doing. I will. I promise I will. But this is good because I think when I think about that, I'm always, you know, institutions always have to learn from artists.
Yes.
Like we have to, how we build our models. So if this is where your journey is in this moment, how can institutions model that?
Okay. I hate the word woke. It's intellectually lazy. Okay. I believe that equity is actually the aspiration of America. Okay. And that makes Voldemort and the administration literally the most anti-American president in this century and the past century, I believe. That the arc of the American narrative is actually about the expansion of the cultural radius.
Great.
And so I think institutions can adopt that language. Yeah. I think that we allow, okay, like if you're going to be a place where art happens, then we used to talk about being a citizen institution, which is really sexy. Be a fucking artist. Be an institution as artists. Lead with your artist heart.
Period.
And if you did that, where would you be? Wouldn't you reject the narrow labels of myopic, mostly men? Yeah. Wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, of course.
So like, are our institutions businesses whose products are artistic moments, or are our institutions cultural halfway houses for rays of light?
That's right. Yeah, I'd like that.
You know what I mean?
like that. I like that.
So it requires a repositioning, a psychological repositioning that also dovetails with what exactly our business models are.
That's right.
And it's a bet, like an actual go to Vegas roulette bet, that we not only are right, but there is a broader, more beautiful, bigger economy in lights than there is in like a narrow, decrepit way of thinking about what our business models are supposed to be.
I feel that.
I know you're not going to answer the question. I know we got the rap side.
Okay. Yes. Well, can I ask him one more question? Yes. Well, no. This is what I will say. You asked me what I'm working on.
Yes.
I'll tell you what I'm inspired by.
Okay.
I'm inspired by, as the conversation started earlier, and I know we're here to talk about theater.
Oh, right.
But what I think is so inspiring is this erasing of all boundaries and lines. I was so excited to see, you know what I mean, of art, of culture, of all of that. So, where are our visual artists in the room? I love that there's so many choreographers here. I mean, filmmakers are here, at erasing of the lines. There is so much to learn and be inspired by from across culture writ large. Dance hall artists, I'm randomly pulling out, but I'm not. There's actually real currency in that, and I'm right now artistically I'm very inspired by that. So if that was the last bit, because I know our next section is about the future. Marc, if you were to craft a manifesto for Black theater in 2040, what would the first line be? That's it. That's all I want.
See, I don't freestyle. Start beatboxing and maybe it'll come. No.
I mean, don't tempt me with a good time.
If a manifesto for Black theater in the year 2040?
Simply because you said the pathway for now is looking towards the future. This is the work of Catalyst, is building the pathway towards the future. Manifestos is what you do so well as poet.
Okay.
What would the first line be?
We are the great-grandchildren of those who endured. Hear us.
That's it. Thank you very much, Marc Bamuthi. Thank you, Sade. Thank you, Jonathan.